What's good, YouTube fam? It's your boy Tony, aka Descendant of Chaos and Controversy, and I'm doing a video to answer a question that was asked of me. And basically, it pertains to my model in reference to balancing the scales. And I was asked to elaborate on that and what my interpretation of that represented. Okay, so by definition, according to how I see it, it's like whenever there's a discussion presented or argument or debate going, and there are opposing points of views on whatever subject matter that is put on the table, and you got one side that's one-sided and the other side that's one-sided, and there are opposing views, but there is, believe it or not, a middle ground or gray areas to an argument. Or a better analogy where it's better understood is um, there are two sides to every story, or there's two sides to a coin. Okay. Now, if you're only looking at the heads of a coin without seeing the other side as being tails, but you acknowledge that the coin exists, but you're only seeing one side of that coin. How are you going to make an argument, to support your narrative or your talking points if you can't see the other side of that coin? You know, and that's why I talk about balancing the scales and seeing things from different perspectives. You know, and not being one sided with it, because I say I might have a strong point of view on, say, law enforcement, right? And I might attack, or my presentation or how I come across may appear that I have a distaste or a dislike for cops, solely or based only on what I see bad cops doing, and not giving other cops the benefit of the doubt. To say, hey, when they go into to do a job, they do serve their communities, or they do try to deal or interact with the public with respect, and not come across in a sense of they're antagonistic, or they escalate a situation unnecessarily, and they don't want to be generalized or categorized or put in certain boxes based on these instances that are highlighted. And I'm aware of that, but it's like, how should I put it like this? If okay, in school, right? There are students that are uh, that may excel in their academics, and yeah, you want to show recognition to say, hey, I'm proud of you for as a student doing your job. But you also have to acknowledge the ones that aren't doing so well in school. You understand what I'm saying? You can't just be in favor of or support, the good students. You also got to acknowledge the students that are struggling. You know what I'm saying? You can't just neglect them or be dismissive of. You have to acknowledge those students as well. And for a long time, when it came to law enforcement, the bad cops were conveniently ignored or given a pass to do what they do, inflicting harm, um, altering people's lives just by their interaction with them, um, arresting them, filing false charges just because they knew, based on the sole principle of them being an officer, their word was gold, their word was platinum, and you didn't stand a chance against an officer, especially in court. Forget about out here on the streets. But then the the climate and the atmosphere shifted to now where what was once ignored is now being observed and highlighted, and that has overshadowed the presence of the good officers. And people said, okay, Tony, so you talk solely and more direct on these officers that do all these bad things and stuff like that. How come you don't give credibility to good officers? And why is your attitude the way it is? And I said, I'll tell you why my attitude is what it is. Because you do have officers that they consider whistleblowers or go against the blue wall, the code of silence, the brotherhood of blue. You know what I'm saying? And call out these bad officers. But it isn't without backlash or repercussions. They face a sense of discrimination when they turn, as they say, turn their back on their own, based on the moral code, based on doing what is right, basically trying to preserve the integrity of their department to where they are not given a bad reputation. But it seems like, you award bad people for bad behavior, which is funny because isn't that the same MO that they put on the citizens, with all these protests against George Floyd and the Breonna Taylors and stuff like that? They're like, oh yeah, you holding these people up to be martyrs and stuff like that, and you are idolizing criminals and stuff. But isn't that what you do with bad cops? You idolize criminals, people with bad misconduct, bad behaviors, a poor representation of what it is to be a law enforcement officer. But the accountability isn't how should I say, enforced upon certain law enforcement officers and stuff like that. Instead, there's everything put in place to protect them. Right, wrong, or indifferent. You know? But it seemed like when it comes to us citizens, there's more of an accountability on our behalf than it is on those who our tax money, our tax dollars go to fund these departments and stuff like that. Okay? So that's one example that I could point out in regards to balancing scales between law enforcement and to add a side note to that, what I don't like is that, and here's another thing that I can emphasize, and it goes on to the mindset of, and I'm gonna define this through the examples of when I say I don't like when bad officers get away with doing certain things. They escalate instead of de-escalating. They abuse their position of power, overstep their bounds of authority, and that puts the good officers in a bad predicament because sooner or later there is going to be some retaliation from the citizens against the police, and the ones that's going to get caught in the crosshairs and in the crossfires are the good officers who do what they're supposed to do, who aren't out here violating people's rights, abusing them, stealing from them, planting drugs on them, beating them up, killing them, lying about a lot of stuff. to cover their own butts. Because if you were so much in the right, why would you lie? That's the other thing. So my problem is some of these antics and behaviors of these bad officers be putting good officers in a fucked up position to where their lives are compromised solely based on, and people don't understand that. So it's like your actions have an impact not only on the people who you target, but it also brings unwanted, unnecessary backlash on your fellow officers who go by the book and do what they're supposed to do, who don't violate policy. Okay? So that's one. Now, when it comes to the whole race thing, okay? Um, some people get all in their feelings about a lot of layers of concerns that's addressed on different levels. Um, a lot of white people feel that they're being discriminated against, that they're at a disadvantage in this country, um, that they're being blamed for everything, and they're catching a bad rep, and they're being demonized and everything like that based on generalizations. Okay? Now, I said I don't support generalizing groups because you're discrediting the individuals for their actions, and you're holding a whole group accountable. Ironically, ironically, when it comes to the discussions of reparations, okay, when it comes to holding people accountable that haven't been accountable for the atrocities and the devastating acts against humanity when you terrorize another group and exploited them for some time in this country. I'm talking about in this country. Because a lot of people, when they want to interject, they want to use examples outside of their dwellings. But I'm talking about, and that's the thing. Everybody's so focused on everything, in other areas and other countries and stuff, that they don't take the time out to correct what's going on in their own backyard. They want to sit there and criticize what other people are doing. And America is good for that. But other people has taken notice of America's flaws and pointing out our hypocrisy. Talking about, don't sit there and criticize us when you got your own shit to deal with that you have yet to correct or resolve. So don't go sitting there pointing the fingers at us, talk about what we need to do and how you want to judge us and when you got a lot of people looking at America like America's a big fucking joke. Especially at this particular point in time. But in regards to like when people say or like I said, when it comes to making generalizations, um for some time, and even in today's current uh situation, the question is, and when it's pointed out, people get defensive. But why do you get defensive as an automatic reaction instead of just taking the time out to just zip it and listen? You're already ready with the rebuttals, you know what I'm saying, or the remarks, but you're not taking the time out to pay attention and listen so that you can understand why a situation has transpired, or why things are how they are, or why people feel this certain way. Because you're too busy trying to go on the attack and an insult, and make a situation seem that's less than what it is. you know you're being dismissive. And I say this: when it comes to a certain percentage of white people who have these point of views, these opinions, their perspective, and they want to criticize like black people, so to speak, and they want to point the finger and do all this stuff, and call out names, and say how stupid we are, or whatever the case may be. What is seen today is nothing new. It's nothing new. This has been going on since the, how should I say, the establishment was being constructed here in America. Okay, so when you had people who went out their way to make laws to exclude black people, demonize black people by saying that they're taking your jobs, oh, they're gonna rape your white women, and all that other stuff, when truth be told, black women were getting raped by the slave masters. Okay, kids were being born out of wedlock that either went into the master's household as mulattoes or something, or they were killed and discarded. Same with the master's wives and stuff. Oh, you didn't think that they didn't go out there and found them a buck to go fuck as a retaliation against their husbands sleeping with these black slaves, these black female slaves and stuff? And then being called a nigger, being hung, burnt out of our homes, crosses burned on the property and stuff, being told what we could and couldn't do, couldn't vote, couldn't attend certain gatherings, or be allowed in certain neighborhoods or certain establishments. And even and enemies, like the Germans and stuff like that, they were treated better than black people. And then what is crazy, you had athletes like Jesse Owens who went as a representation of America during the Olympics and represented America well, only to come back home to still be treated like shit. No appreciation. It's like, good job, but now it's business as usual. Know your place. The conditioning. And people are trying to break out of that conditioning of, damn, we was under control. We was told what to do. We was told what we couldn't do, what we was allowed to and what we was not allowed to and stuff. And then when you start to like realize that you're not dependent, you're independent now. You're not dependent on the instructions of, overpowering, controlling factor. Now you are free. And people think of freedom as it just, oh, you're no longer property. But no, there's different levels of where you still are restricted, not allowed to. You know what I'm saying? But then again, now you got it to where white people feel that they're being treated some kind of way. And I always say this: do I agree with how black people come at white people in certain narratives? No, I don't. But I understand. I understand. Because if you could be so malicious and so arrogant and condescending to another group, they pick up on that behavior, just like other ethnicities pick up on the white behaviors and stuff. And why black people have problems with other people in other cultures and stuff, because they adopt the white mentality. And people say that's not a thing. That's not. Yes, it is a thing. Because when you see, oh goddamn, they treating black people like that, we don't want to be treated like that. Fuck that. So they'll do everything to make themselves seem acceptable so they can get the approval of, wow, they're looking down on them like, on black people like we're better than you. See, white people don't treat us like that. It must be something wrong with you. No, no, that's not the case. But again, when you teach a certain behavior or you subject people to a certain behavior and how you treat them, they're learning how to become just like you. They learn how to become racist. They learn how to have certain prejudices. They learn how to have certain stereotypes. So what was okay for you to do to other people, now when they start doing it to you, it's unacceptable. Now you want to call it reverse racism. But you are responsible for the initial act of racism. So don't start crying now when the roosters come home, as they say. It, again, accountability. Now, when people make the generalizations to say, oh, white people are evil, they're demonic, they're bad, they're the devil. Let me put it to you like this. When you had the civil rights movement, and I'll go with that because that's the best way to make my point in this, to offset, the ignorance. There were white people who supported equality. There were white people who were against the racism. There were white people who actually died fighting alongside or with in support of the cause of the equality and the liberty and the civil rights and making it to where we come together as Americans despite color. Okay, not like what you saw with this Black Lives Matter bullshit, because that shit just got whatever infected with some bullshit. It was disingenuous. See, back then, during the times of, like, say Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, the cause in which there was protests or a fight, as a rise above and against such tyranny, unjustness, unjustified laws, so to speak, and how treatment was issued towards and against a particular race just because of their color. People fought against that. People fought against that. But you always hear it's like, it's the South, it's the South, it's the South. And the credibility is given to the North as if they're like our saving grace, and that's not the case. There's some fucked up people up north too. So don't believe everything that you hear when you want to demonize one side, to give all the credit to another side when there's ignorance no matter where you go. But when it comes to, I guess, issues when it comes to like the family structure and stuff like that, a lot of people want to look at the black community and say, hey, due to this, that, or whatever, you got these deadbeat dads in the black community, these black fathers don't want to have nothing to do with their kids and stuff like that. and you listening to this rhetoric and like, oh, all they want to do is run the streets and this and this and that, whatever, whatever. No, don't listen to that nonsense because that's not true. You have a lot of fathers, and I'm one of the ones that had to go through this nonsense where unless you follow certain guidelines and I don't know, I don't want to say rules, but when you give power to one parent and discard the other parent, which in a lot of cases is the fathers, you only care as long as the father is shelling out money, right? His involvement in the child's life, you can give a fuck about. Let's be real, okay? And this is based on the system that's created, you know, with uh, when women get on welfare and stuff like that, and they want to give all the benefits to the woman as long as the man is a present. But if the man is absent, you can get housing, you can get cash assistance, you can get SNAP benefits, which is food stamps and stuff like that. Um, and with the housing, you can get Section 8, low income, or whatever the case, as long as the man is absent. And then they go after the man if the woman's on cash assistance to put them on child support. Then you have to go to courts just to see if you can visit your kids and this and that, which is stupid. Which is stupid. Then I've had this argument with my son's mother. I'm like, I'm not going through the fucking courts with this bullshit. I'm raising my son just like you are able to raise our son. Equally. Without an overseer telling me what I can and can't do. And if I come up short, maybe 1 month on child support, you want to throw me in jail. But yet, no one's coming after your ass, being the mother, with that same stipulation. You can miss me with that shit. Fuck you. I think they should do away with child support. In my opinion. And I'm surprised the institution that supports child support has yet to be challenged and sued. Because you violated so many rights going against the father in favor of the mother that there is no equality there. There isn't. Sometimes there's a place in regards to like government or the courts, and then there's a place where they just remove themselves from like certain things. Do not interject. It's not your fucking place. Okay? But they would want to say that the black man doesn't care about his kids. That's a fucking false narrative right there. There are black men that cry because they can't see their kids. They get frustrated, angry, depressed. And then you got these wicked witches and shit that utilize their kids as weapons against the dads. But then they'll favor some no good motherfucker that they take the child support and spend it on, right? But as you would have it, as much as they want to say, oh, look at it, white people go through the same shit. There are fucking fathers that have to go through shit with their deadbeat baby mamas that are white, are on welfare. There are more white people that are on welfare than there are black people, believe it or not. Believe it or not. And people try to figure out, at first welfare started because of, when the men went off to fight in the wars, and they were the breadwinners of the house, okay? They were the breadwinners of the house. But without the breadwinners of the house being present to provide food, clothing, and shelter, that's where the government steps in and say, hey, we'll provide you with welfare because the father is absent. And that was only because the fathers were out fighting the wars and stuff. But now it has evolved into this bullshit that what we come to know of today. Okay? And it seems like that the welfare has been one of them things that was applied only to the black community. To look at us as if we're lazy and we're no good and we don't want to work. When in all actuality and reality, there are more white people on welfare than there are black people. I mean, come on now. When they want to talk about percentages and shit of there's more white people than there are of black people, and then y'all want to play the percentage games and shit like that, right? Okay, so um, stereotypes and prejudices. I'll say that everybody has their own prejudices against anybody, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with fucking race, and that's where people get it wrong. Um, it could be about your gender, your sexual orientation, um, the jobs that you work, where you live, what car you're driving, um, the clothes that you're wearing, um, whether you're an athlete or not an athlete, whatever, your height, you know, that's where all the prejudice, that's the definition of the prejudging. You prejudging people based off of, you know, the presentation and the representation, so to speak. And you go to an automatic assumption, okay? So that's what that's about. Um, and everybody's guilty of that. It's not just a white person. It's not just a black person. It's not just a Hispanic, Asian, Indian, whatever. It's everybody. You know, we all have our prejudices. Um, when it comes to the political nonsense, um, where you got Republicans versus the Democrats, um, who makes up the body of this party and who doesn't, versus who doesn't make up the body of that party and who does. You know, and it's crazy because there's a lot of hypocrisy in that. And the prime example would be that you had a lot of black people giving Trump a whole bunch of shit, calling him racist because this is what they were conditioned to believe. Um, Whatever. And I say, in my opinion, uh, I don't believe that Trump is racist. Do I believe that Trump um, gave zero fucks about what came out of his mouth? Yep. Could he have come off condescending at times? Absolutely. Could he be described as an asshole? Yep. But racist? This dude. Let me put it to you this way. This is getting to this particular issue. Mike Tyson himself said it when he was talking about certain things, and you can go back and look it up. When Mike Tyson was at the height of his career, and he had white people that took him in and looked, sheltered him, and got him to where he was. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I'm talking. And this is where I go to look at certain things. When you have black people want to talk down on white people and stuff. What was the old man? The old man's name was Gus, I believe. And Tyson loved that man. Tyson loved that man. He did. Because he was a father figure to Tyson. Okay? And Tyson wasn't perfect. He wasn't perfect. But when he was at the peak of his career, and then he got involved with that Robin Givens bitch, and shit started to go downhill from there because his marriage was failing and shit. And then you had that motherfucking asshole, how shall I say, leech Don King, that black sports promoter and shit. Some people say he had ties with the mob. I don't know how true that is, but it was one of the things that they put out there. But basically, them two, black, was the contributing factor to Tyson and his downfall, because he was trying to deal with things on an emotional level with Robin Givens and shit. The divorce from that. Don King fucking manipulating him and fucking making him go broke and taking all his money and shit. See, 9 times out of 10, we are our own worst enemy, right? Sometimes there are black people that mean us no good, right? But who was it that looked out for fucking Tyson and helped him out in his troubling times? See, this is what they don't talk about, right? When you want to fucking call Trump a racist, Trump was there to support Mike Tyson. Look up some of his podcast shit that he has when people ask him about Trump. He'll tell you. But then again, this is what I don't get. And this is, and when people say, Tony, are you a Republican? Tony, are you a Democrat? What are you? I'm neither or, motherfucker. I don't feel I have to have a need to have a sense of belonging. I don't need to feel that I have to affiliate myself with, groups and shit. Part of the reason why I didn't get involved with any fucking gangs growing up. Yeah. I stood on my own. I'm not a follower. Okay? To a certain extent. Because when it comes to YouTube, I do follow certain people. But then I started looking at now. So you had all these black people that was fucking going against Trump. Now you have fucking Jim Crow Joe. Okay, how do you support a man who talked to black people with such disrespect, these black leaders and stuff, was for segregation, had ties affiliation with the Klan, whatchamacallit, and they how should I put it? Supported the crime bill. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then you had Koala B. Harris, who's not even African American, told you during the campaign trail that she wasn't going to do anything for the African Americans. But was made it very clear that she was going to do shit for everybody else but African Americans. But you still was in support of these people. Jim Crow Joe talking about you ain't black if you don't vote, or however he worded that shit. Who says shit like that? It makes no sense. So it's like, if you're gonna criticize, and then also the biggest thing was when there was talk of reparations and stuff like that, or and Ice Cube was an advocate for it. Talk about black people need tangibles. Black people need tangibles. Trump's team sat down with Ice Cube and they came up with the Platinum Plan. Wasn't perfect, but it was something. Something was put on the table. What did Joe Biden and his team say? Oh, we'll talk to you after the election. Being completely dismissive. But you see, they'll sit down with a fucking Cardi B and entertain her retarded ass. But with a person of some intelligence like O'Shea Jackson, aka Ice Cube, oh, this man talks like he got sense. He knows what he's talking about. You know, he's very passionate about this. We'll get back to you on that. Balance the scales. Balance the scales. So, yeah. But I'm gonna cut this short. That's what I want to talk about because I'm gonna start having calls coming in because I get these people that are either telemarketer, people with auto this and auto that, these little robocalls and shit like that, and I hate that, especially when I'm trying to record my videos and stuff. That shit pisses me off to no motherfucking end. It does. But when people talk about me balancing the scales and what I mean by that, it's saying look at things in an overall perspective and not just be one-sided with things. You know, call out the bullshit. You know, don't just be like, oh, just because I support this person, I'm always going to agree. I'm always going to agree. I'm not going to question anything that they say. No. Question everything. Even if that's even when it comes to us content creators, whatever we put out there as far as content goes, you know, question us, challenge us respectfully though. We can agree to disagree, but you don't always have to fucking agree with everything that, you know, we put out there, our material and stuff. Part of the reason why we put out the material that we do is to have discussions, to have debates, to have these open dialogues that people are afraid of because they feel that people might, you know, react or respond in a certain way. No, not everybody's like that, you know. But and like me, it's like 9 times out of 10, I learn from people. Rocket Man, like when I put out videos and stuff like that, he be he be the main one in my comment section, giving me some information that I was slightly aware of, not fully aware of, but he'll elaborate on certain things, and I appreciate his feedback. You know, um, talk to Ricky Manor and we'll discuss certain things, and then later on he'll make a video and he'll touch upon little things that have been discussed, but you know he'll have his own thing that he'll talk about, or I'll speak in favor of Ricky Manor and stuff like that. Again, do I agree with everything? No, I don't. Some of the things he discussed, I don't have no knowledge of. I'm not all about the political shit like that. That's his shit. That's his shit. That's him all day. Like he can give you a topic of discussion in more in depth detail about the Republicans, the conservatives, and the Democrats than I can. You know, my knowledge only goes as far as like what I hear. You know what I'm saying? But I also can kind of see some of the hypocrisy coming from all sides and shit. Like you say one thing over here, and then you say something over here, and then you criticizing these people, but then you turn around and be just as guilty for the same shit that you don't criticize these motherfuckers for. Why the fuck you fix your mouth in the first place to even point the finger? You know? So, anyway, but that's all I got for today. Maybe. I might come up with another video depending on um what I feel I want to discuss or talk about. But all in all, until next time, until next video, peace.